So your garden's gonna make you a lot of food this year, or it's gonna make you a broken heart. And the difference isn't the water, it's not the sun. The difference is a pollinator showing up and getting jiggy on your flower. So, welcome to Yard Eaters. My name's Matt. In today's episode, we're gonna talk about beneficial bugs and how to get them in your yard. And so stick around in the end, because I'm gonna end the episode with one tip so important that it makes all the others pointless if you skip it. So, let's get started. Now, you can do everything right, perfect water, perfect soil, perfect sun, and still get 0 melons or 0 squash if a bee never shows up. Because without an insect moving pollen from flower to flower, your cucumbers, your squash, your watermelon, your pumpkins, they're all gonna shrivel up, turn yellow, rot, and die. And yes, while tomatoes and peppers can technically pollinate themselves in the wind, those flowers are specifically designed for bees. The pollen is locked up inside there, and it actually takes a bee landing and vibrating on it at the right frequency for that pollen to release. They call it buzz pollination, and allowing a bee to do that, enticing a bee to do that, can increase your yield by 40%. And within that yield, your tomatoes are going to be heavier and sweeter. Now, this isn't just a backyard thing. The largest growers in the world truck in bees, release them in their greenhouse, and let them pollinate. These people can make perfect soil, perfect temperature, perfect environment, but the one thing that they can't replicate is pollination. Now think about what you're planting. Your tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, peppers, melons, berries, beans, apples, pumpkins. Every single one relies on a pollinator to turn a flower into something that you can actually bite into. The stuff that doesn't need bees, your wheat, corn, rice, nobody's really growing that in the backyard, except for me. But you don't plant a garden for a loaf of bread. You plant it for the good stuff. And the good stuff requires bees. Now there's a second group everyone gets excited about, the predators. Ladybugs, green lacewings, parasitic wasps, the bodyguards. And look, they're great to have around. But here's something no one says out loud. If you're spending your energy trying to recruit an army of predators, ask yourself, stop and ask, why do I have to build an army in the first place? If you need an army, that means you have a whole host of pests for them to attack. And if you have a whole host of pests in your yard, in your garden, that means your plants are stressed. Because pests don't attack at random. Your stressed plants give off chemical signals, and these bugs smell that and sense it from a long way away, and they hone in on that plant. That's why one plant in your garden gets completely swamped and the ones right next to it are left alone. These bugs aren't attacking your garden, they're attacking the weakest plant in your garden. Think of how lions hunt. Have you ever seen how a lion hunts? They don't go after the alpha zebra or the alpha wildebeest, the biggest and strongest. They go after the babies and the sick and old and dying. So, if you want to bring in your pollinators and a few bodyguards, you have to understand how they find a flower. And it's broken down in 2 ways. First, the smell from far away, and when they get up close, the color. Okay, we're going to start with smell because that's what gets them in the block in the first place. So a honeybee has a nose that's 100 times more powerful than yours. And in good conditions, she can pick up a flower from more than a mile away. Strongly scented herbs are a giant open sign in the sky. So dill, fennel, cilantro, parsley, mint, lemon balm, oregano, basil, let all those go to flower and those pull the bugs in hard. And the bonus, those same herbs confuse the bad bugs trying to sniff out your plants. So you got one plant doing 2 jobs. Now once they're close, the color takes over. And here's the answer to what I teased in the beginning. The color bees cannot see at all is red. It looks black to them. Bees see an ultraviolet light, your blues, your greens. So if your yard is full of red flowers, the bees will likely fly right over it. Plant blue, purple, yellow flowers, so borage, salvia, lavender, sunflowers, that's bee fuel. Now hummingbirds are the opposite. They see red and go for those deep tubular flowers that bees can't reach. So red salvia, bee balm, And your predators, ladybugs, lacewings, wasps, go for the white and the pale yellow flowers, which is why sweet alyssum and dill and yarrow are on every beneficial bugs list. So the smell is going to bring them in from a mile away, and the color is going to show them exactly where to land. Get both of those right, and you won't be guessing how you can attract a pollinator or a predatory bug. You're going to be flagging them down. Now, one more thing to keep in mind, and I have this problem. If your yard isn't getting 6 or more hours of sunlight, we need to change the plants that you're putting in it. Borage, lavender, sunflower, salvia, they all want full sun. So if you're working in shade, swap it for foxglove, bee balm, lungwort, columbine, coral bells, woodland phlox. Same job, just a different plant. So smell and color, it brought them in, but the shape of the plant's actually going to dictate if they can eat. So every bug has a different mouth, and you need to match the bug's mouth to the plant. Now a bumblebee has a 1/2 inch tongue, and it can dive deep into a salvia or tomato flower. A honeybee has a 1/4 inch tongue and works those medium depth blooms. A hoverfly, they don't have a tongue at all. It has a sponge pad that it just soaks up nectar from that's already on the surface. And a parasitic wasp has a tongue smaller than a millimeter, and it can only drink from the most exposed flowers on the planet. Now we all know a hummingbird has a forked tongue, and it wicks that nectar out of those deep red trumpets. So you don't plant one flower, you plant a whole range. Tiny clustered umbels like dill, fennel, parsley, and Queen Anne's lace for the wasps and hoverflies. And then your disc flowers like sunflowers and zinnias for the bees. And then your tubular flowers like salvia and bee balm for those bumblebees and hummingbirds. So one bed, but every workforce is served. So here's a mistake that I have definitely done, and I know a lot of you are doing. We like to pile up our flowers in the summer. But the problem is these bugs are coming out of hibernation in March, and then they're trying to fatten up and go back into hibernation October, November. So if you're one of those gardens that just has flowers blooming just a few months of the year, you aren't going to be visited nearly as much as that garden across the street that has something flowering every month of the growing season, especially in the beginning when that bee wakes up and it starts to set up its route that it's going to do every single day. It already set up its route, but you're going to bloom in July. It's just not going to work. You're competing. You're competing with your neighbor's flowers. You go cut them off. I'm just kidding. Don't cut them off. But make sure that your garden has something flowering every month of the growing season. So like I said, there's 2 windows that really matter the most because a lot of us are forgetting them. The first is that late winter, and then the second is that early spring. So in the early spring, February, March, that's when the queen bumblebees wake up from hibernation. They are starving, and if there's nothing blooming, they die before the season even starts. So you want things like crocus, snowdrops, hellebore, lungwort, witch hazel. That's the early shift. Then spring fills in, and you get your borage, your columbine, chives, dandelions, your fruit tree blossoms start to come out. Don't pull those dandelions, by the way. They're some of the first food that bee gets all year. So summer is the easy part. Lavender, bee balm, yarrow, catmint, coneflower, and your herbs once you let them go to flower. Most people already have that covered. Now the second window, that fall, September, October, November, everyone's fading and the bugs are trying to fatten up before winter. This is where asters and goldenrod carry the whole yard. Goldenrods are a pollinator powerhouse. Throw in some sedum and late salvia, and you've kept that garden kitchen open right up to the frost. So simple rule, walk your garden once a month and see what's blooming. If there isn't anything blooming, that's your gap to fill. Now going back to the predatory bugs, something that took me a few seasons to figure out is a lot of those predatory bugs that you're trying to attract aren't monsters as adults. They're monsters in the larva stage. Let me show you. Take the ladybug. This cute little bundle of joy can eat about 50 aphids a day. That's not bad. But the larva, the ugly one that looks like a tiny black alligator crawling up your stem, That thing can eat 10 times the adult's daily rate. That baby is an assassin, not the adult. Lacewings, same story, but even more extreme. The pretty green adults with the gold eyes, they don't hunt at all. They drink nectar. The larva, they call it the aphid lion, eats up to 200 aphids a week. Same with hoverflies. The adults are pollinators, but the larva quietly eats about 50 aphids a day down in your plants. And last but not least, the parasitic wasp. This one's the wildest. The adult drinks the nectar, that's it. Whole job is to find a pest, a caterpillar or a hornworm, and lay her eggs inside it. The larvae hatch and eat the bug alive from the inside out. It's pretty violent. So follow the food chain. You plant the flower, that attracts the adult. The adult comes and eats from it. They lay their eggs in the area. That larva wakes up and they start the killing. So attracting these bugs isn't about feeding the hunters are the babies. What you're really doing is feeding the adults nectar so they stick around and lay eggs near your pests and giving their larvae somewhere to live. That's why the flower matters even for predators. No nectar for the adults, no next generation of assassins. Now, in terms of attracting your pollinators and your predators, we've covered the food part, but now let's talk about water and shelter. A strong beehive can go through a gallon of water a day in the summer. A few of these bees have one job, just go get water, making 50 to 100 trips a day back and forth, because their food doesn't have enough moisture to keep them alive. So set a shallow saucer out somewhere, fill it with pebbles, add water until it's just below the top of the rocks. The pebbles give them somewhere to land so they don't drown because bees can't swim. Once a bee finds your water, she's locked in for life. The next thing is the shelter. So bugs need a place to rest. They need a place to hide from this sweltering midday sun. They need a place to overwinter and lay their eggs. So stop raking all of your beds clear. A clean bed is a dead bed. Every fall when you rake out all that leaf litter and tear out the dead stems, you're throwing your lacewings and ladybugs in the trash. They overwinter in all that mess. So a clean garden in November is practically an empty garden in May. And one last thing I don't hear enough people talk about that I think is actually really important, especially if you're a beginner gardener, you just need to give yourself some time. And I know it sucks to hear, but imagine right now, you're gonna have dinner tonight. It's a lot of fun trying to find a new place to have dinner, right? You already have your route. You already have your 5 or 6 restaurants that you just go to every single time because it's easy. It doesn't require more mental power, decision making. Everything's already set. You don't need to figure out if your family's gonna like the food there or not. So you have this route, you have this trap line. As a beginner gardener, especially if you didn't have anything in the beginning of the season, these bugs are gonna develop that route, and unless something breaks that route, they're not going to look for an alternative. Why would they? So give yourself some time. Be patient. It can take a season for the bugs to really develop the route, figure out where your garden is, and start using it and giving you the benefits of them showing up. But just give yourself patience and make sure you have something early in the season to attract them when they're first developing that route. Another thing to promise yourself, stop using pesticides, insecticidal soap, and really even neem oil. Yes, they won't hurt the adults, but they're gonna hurt the babies. All of those things kind of go after soft-bodied animals, which are the larvae. So you're gonna kill off a whole generation just by using it. Focus on building the right environment instead, where Mother Nature does the work for you. So here's the thing I said in the beginning, that if you ignore, everything else goes right out the window. So we've spoken about the color, the shape, the scent, the water, giving them a place to live, giving them food all year, but all of that is just to attract the bugs, is to bring them into your garden. Now you have to ask yourself, if I need predatory bugs in my garden, that means I probably have pests. And if I have pests, that means my plants are stressed. And 99% of the time, when your plants are stressed, it's because of the soil. Bugs, your pests that you don't like, they can't eat healthy plants. They literally can't digest them. So the point is, fix the soil. That builds healthy plants that are practically immune to these pests. And then you don't have to worry about attracting predatory bugs. You don't have to worry about spraying or anything like that. Focus on the soil. I made a whole video on exactly that. Why bugs eat sick plants and how to make yours invisible to them without spraying a drop. If you're fighting pests right now, that's the next video to watch. Alright, so let's summarize. The pollinators and the soil, that's your main event. Predatory bugs are nice to have, but if you're chasing them, that's likely your soil waving a red flag. To get the good bugs in your garden, plant the right shape, plant the right color, plant for all year, give them some water, give them a home, and stop spraying. Do that, and the bugs will move in and never leave. So, eat the good stuff, stay healthy, and follow me so I can show you how to eat from your yard. I'll see you next time.